Well, in the past couple of weeks, we were reminded that on average, Canadians spend the first 6 months of every year paying off their Christmas debts. Imagine that. And that's debts from the previous year. It's that buy now, pay later trap that is so easy to fall into. We're talking about credit today and debt. Love it or hate it, most of us can't live without credit. And there's a new book that could prove to be a valuable resource for managing your credit and your debt. It's called It's Your Money, Tools, Tips, and Tricks to Borrow Smarter and Pay It Off Quicker. Sounds good to me. The author is George Balke, and he's here today. How are you?
Hi, Kelly. Excellent. Nice to see you.
Well, yeah, good to have you here. Dragged you in from the sunshine.
No problem.
But this is important stuff.
It is.
That is a staggering statistic comment off the top, but it's the truth, isn't it? I mean, we carry debt like crazy.
Well, we've now at 110% of our disposable income in debts. And debt isn't so much the point. It's what do those add up for monthly payments? Because if you think about it, whether you make $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, you take your mortgage payment or your rent away, take your credit card payment away, take your car payment away, you're living on $200 or $300 or $400 a month. And that isn't fun anymore because the debts have to be paid. And last year we paid over $57 billion just in interest charges. That doesn't get us anywhere. That's just treading water to pay for something we bought yesterday, today.
And it can be so depressing. I mean, once you get yourself into a situation where you feel like you can't get out, I mean, how do you deal with that? It's right. I know that's one of the things you cover in the book is just how do you even manage yourself and your attitude towards, for starters, credit. But then if you find yourself in debt, I shouldn't say once you do, if you do, you know, that there's a whole attitude that goes along with this on both sides of it. So let's start with the credit side.
Well, and you know, debt doesn't just show up one morning. Debt is almost always a result of poor or uninformed borrowing choices.
Okay.
85% of teenagers have never taken a course on finance or credit. If you don't learn it as an 18-year-old starting to borrow, the only way you're going to learn as an adult is through trial and error. I shouldn't have, I didn't know, if I had known. That's the danger part.
Sounds like a recommendation for a course we should have in high school.
Well, in Alberta, at least, we have something like that. The book should be mandatory reading for anybody between 17 and 25 just to avoid these pitfalls. Because if we can avoid it, we're in a whole lot better shape.
Well, when you say that, you know, we're not educated sort of early enough about this, and of course you're also watching your parents, and most of us live this way. We use credit cards. You get to university, and I know they you know, right in the concourse at the universities there, here, have our credit card.
And you know why? Because credit card companies know that the default rate for college or university students isn't much higher, because the worst they can do is call their parents and get some money. 75% of university students stay loyal to that first credit card for 15 years or more.
Wow.
So they want to hook you early.
Yeah. Well, I remember being denied in university, but anyway, there you go. These things, but that is saying that it's a pattern that starts, and we're our own worst victims because who doesn't want to live, who doesn't want to enjoy some of the things that are out there? And what you spelt it out already about, on average incomes, not a lot is left after we acquire the certain things that we all expect to have in this life.
And
a
sometimes
home, a
it's just being aware of these things.
Mm-hmm.
As of a couple of months ago, credit card companies now will charge you 5% more in interest rate if you've missed 2 consecutive payments. Almost nobody reads the back of their statement and knows these things. Late charges are now with every credit card, over limit charges.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a penny over limit, $20 to $35 fee that month just to go a penny over the limit.
Well, now that you've drawn attention to that, what can you do about it?
Well, credit card interest rates are negotiable as well. Just making sure you make your minimum payment, you can just walk into the bank and have them automatically out of your bank account take the minimum payment each month. You can pay extra if you want, but that way you know the day of your due date, it'll automatically be paid, and that will prevent you from ever getting into the mid-20s for interest rates. When it comes,
can you not negotiate the interest rate that they sign you up with a specific rate, but can you not ask
you can
for it to have it
negotiate the
lowered?
rate on absolutely everything, from vehicle loans to understanding what leasing is to mortgages, take purchasing a house. How many people spend a whole lot of time getting a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 discount to buy a house? And then they run to their nearest bank because that's where they've always dealt and sign the mortgage papers. Well, negotiating on the mortgage, on a $100,000 mortgage, negotiate 1%, save you $18,000. Nobody's going to be able to negotiate $18,000 off the purchase price.
Nope, that's
so
right.
there's always more savings on the credit end of everything than there is on the buying end of it.
All right. I'm glad you brought up mortgages because it's certainly something so many people in Calgary are dealing with right now is that there's just so many people purchasing property right now that you're saying What would be your greatest tip then? Pretty much what you've just
Stop
said.
and take a day to look at mortgages. Before you go to buy a vehicle, 45% of people that trade their vehicles owe more money on it than it's worth. That's a
Okay.
real problem. Stop. Find out what your vehicle's worth. Find out what leasing's about before you sign it. There's also on my website, yourmoneybook.com, there's tons of tools that can just be pulled off, that resources, checklists, budget things. So there's all kinds of information available, but someone has to actually take the time and investigate the credit end just as much as the buying end.
I think probably the best advice I think you're telling us too. Stop and ask questions. Ask and see what is out there. Shop around.
Get the
That's what you're
information.
saying.
Exactly,
Get the
Kelly.
information. What about the trap of a line of credit? Your banks, like say you're having trouble with your Visa, then you turn to a line of credit. Any recommendations around going that route
Lines
to
of
pay
credit
things off?
they're really convenient. They have a really good interest rate. Couple of problems. They were never designed to put little things on it.
Right.
The lines of credits were not designed to make your minimum Visa payment, because
Right.
now you still have your Visa and your line of credit. Lines of credit have a minimum payment that's really tiny, and lots of times it's interest only. If you're paying interest only, you're treading water, and the balance is never going to go away. A personal loan means you have a starting payment and an end. A line of credit makes you the loans officer, so you'd better be really smart and understand how long it's going to be around, because at minimum payments, a line of credit is more than a decade to pay off.
Boy. Okay, I want to ask you what your thoughts are on making a budget. Like when someone gets themselves if someone is in a situation, they're trying to get rid of some debt, they're trying to dig themselves out of a hole. Thoughts on making a budget?
In my book, I marked in there, if you do a budget, and you're probably 2 out of 100 people,
Yeah.
a budget is a real straitjacket, and it shouldn't be. A budget should just be a general guide. But I think the first thing on a budget has to be that you understand all the other bills that you get each month, that you get each year. You can't ignore car insurance just because it comes once a month.
Right.
A budget, to me, always should include having some savings taken right off your paycheck, or having them taken right out of your bank account, because we always tend to pay ourselves last. Paying ourselves first means that money is put away. With a savings rate of 1%, we don't save anymore. And then have some me money in the budget, some wild money, some spending money, because just saving $1.25 on a coffee every day is probably just going to mean you're buying a lottery ticket Friday night.
Yeah, you're spending it somewhere
If a
else.
budget
It would
isn't
seem-
fun, if a budget isn't a general outline, it becomes a pain, a straitjacket, and nobody will do it.
George, you're a wealth of information, and that's what the book's all about. It's about tips and tricks and things to think about, and take the time out to think about the situation you're in or about to get into, if it's going to be a vehicle lease or something, or a home mortgage or something
Exactly.
like that. We've touched on lots of little things here, but I know the real thing to do is pick up the book. It's really a resource guide, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not meant to read from beginning to end, but the moment you borrow some money, stop and read it.
And learn a little bit more about what it is exactly you're doing so that you don't get in trouble. Thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right. Our guest today is George Bulkey. This book, the book again is called It's Your Money. Remember that. It's all about managing credit and debt.